In order to understand this video, you had to have seen a previous video where a Nazi was invited into Parliament in the House of Commons when President Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine was visiting, and he received a standing ovation from all 338 members and everyone that was in the viewing gallery. If you haven't seen it, let's just catch you up to speed.
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was also one for this man, an 8-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War.
He fought with the Nazis, and since then there's been a lot of backlash, such as who is the one to blame, who's going to be the scapegoat. And well, they've found the scapegoat. It's Anthony Rota, and we're going to watch a lot of different speeches, and there's going to be some tugs and pushes and pulls as to who the blame gets passed on. The government of Canada does not vet people, as we're about to see, very well for people that go into the viewing gallery, or that are rather invited guests. A simple Google search of this man, which the PM, the Prime Minister's office, had his name, it was on the itinerary, it was passed around. A simple Google search would have shown that he fought with the Nazis. So this is a very big embarrassment, not just for the Liberals, not just for the House Speaker, but for Canada as well. It's almost as bad as, well, I don't know which is worse, but it's almost as bad as the fact that India allegedly broke into Canada and murdered somebody. Like, Canada is penetrated. We are allowing Nazis into our parliament. We're allowing blackface to lead the country. Like, what the hell's happening to Canada? Things are just not going right, and it doesn't seem like Canada can get a really good, get back on track. It just seems like everything's sporadic, and day to day we're kind of panicking, and it's not good. And it shows a big amount of weakness. Not very good. Welcome back to the video, everybody. Of course, I want to encourage you to give a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already. This is going to be hilarious. You're going to watch Anthony Rota. Instead of yelling at everybody, he's going to be sitting there taking some punches, and the government, the Liberal government, is going to say it's all our fault, and you're going to see everyone say, no, this is your guys' fault, and he should be fired. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
I wish to make a brief statement.
On Friday, in connection with my speech following the Ukrainian president's speech, I pointed out the presence of an individual in the gallery. It was my intention to show that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is nothing new, and that Ukrainians have unfortunately been subject to foreign aggression for far too long now, and it's time it stopped.
Subsequently become aware of more information which causes me to regret my decision to recognize this individual. I wish to apologize to the House, and I'm deeply sorry that I've offended many with my gestures and remarks.
You sure have, buddy.
I would also like to add that this initiative was entirely my own. The individual in question being from my riding and having been brought to my attention. No one, including you, my fellow parliamentarians, or the Ukraine delegation, was privy to my remarks prior to their delivery.
I have to say, though, as a parliamentarian, as a Canadian of Jewish origin, as a descendant of Holocaust survivors whose majority of her family walked in to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and only my grandfather and his brother walked out, that I think this hurt all of us in Parliament. And I'll say that personally, I feel particularly hurt by this. I would say that as parliamentarians, we place our trust in you. There are many times when we recognize people in the gallery, and we do so on your good advice and your good offices. And all of us here did that in the chamber on Friday, because we trusted you on that. I think this
maybe you should have Googled it.
Has been deeply embarrassing for Canada's Parliament.
Oh yeah.
I think it's been deeply embarrassing for Canada, and I think it was deeply embarrassing for the President of the Ukraine, who came here in friendship, who came here because we are a strong ally, and who came here because he trusted Canadians. I appreciate that this was that you're taking responsibility because this was your initiative, and you have confirmed that neither the Government of Canada nor the Ukrainian delegation had any prior knowledge to this individual being invited to the House or that he would be recognized. However, given this deeply embarrassing situation, I think for all of us as parliamentarians on all sides, I think it is very important that we collectively work together to strike this recognition from the record, and I will work with my colleagues to do that.
Oh, no one will ever forget this.
Who
Nope.
have loved ones that were in the Holocaust, to Jewish Canadians, today being Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, a day of atonement, a day to prepare for the year ahead. We stand with you in this. We recognize this was a deeply hurtful moment, and many of us in this chamber feel that hurt acutely. I want to please ask all colleagues, particularly those in the Conservative Party of Canada, to make sure that we do not politicize this issue. I don't think it helps anybody. I think we need to make sure that we move forward, recognize this mistake, and stand in solidarity.
And don't politicize it.
To reiterate our commitment to Jewish Canadians, but also to Ukrainian Canadians and the people who are fighting for freedom, for peace, and for justice in Ukraine right now. Thank you.
And unfortunately, I believe a sacred trust has been broken.
Yeah.
It's for that reason, for the good of the institution of the House of Commons, that I say, sadly, I don't believe you can continue in this role. Regrettably, I must respectfully ask that you step aside. Je demande pour le bien du Parlement.
I ask for the good of Parliament.
Do Trudeau next. Do Trudeau next.
Step down from the role of Speaker.
So before we get into the Andrew Scheer piece, this is something that's very, very, very important. Not only has the House Speaker now, who's liberal, by the way, and in the invitation of the Nazi went through the PMO. They just didn't research it. So they knew who he was. They knew that he was a 9-year-old, war hero. Perhaps they knew he was a Nazi. Perhaps they didn't. Perhaps they're only waiting, hoping that the general public didn't find out. And it turns out that that didn't work out. House Speaker invited a Nazi in, and Liberals allowed it. Justin Trudeau allowed it. The Prime Minister of Canada is known for having done blackface many, many times in the past. At what point do you get to realize, oh, maybe these people shouldn't be working here? Maybe they're really bad people. Maybe you should be fired for doing such things at your job. You would get fired for a fraction of that at literally any other job in the world. But politicians are heavily protected, and it's a no-no. I understand that it sucks and you got a family, you got bills to pay. You fucked up, dude. You invited a Nazi into Parliament and then everyone gave multiple standing ovations. You have to bear the consequences of your actions. And the consequences are, bye-bye, time for you to resign. But will they do that? Who knows? Personally, with this situation, I think they actually will because it's so severe. Just sucks that they haven't done that with the blackface thing, which arguably is also really, really bad.
In the gallery, whose presence fed into the Russian propaganda and narrative about the bogus justification for Putin's illegal invasion. State visits are organized by the government. Every aspect of President Zelensky's visit would have been highly managed by the PMO. There are obviously incredible security concerns when you have not just a head of state, not just a head of a foreign dignitary, but someone whose people are fighting for their lives and their survival, someone who is targeted by Vladimir Putin's regime. Obviously, there are massive security implications. Your statement doesn't answer the questions around how this individual was vetted, how the government, who would have seen all aspects, all guest lists, all interactions with President Zelensky, allowed that person to be in the chamber. Members of Parliament don't have the ability to vet who might happen to be in the chamber on any given day. That's the responsibility of the Director of Protective Services, who reports to the Minister of Public Safety. And the coordination between the Prime Minister's office, the protocol office here in the House of Commons, and that protective service is what members trust is happening to make sure that things like that don't happen. If someone of that background, which a straightforward Google search will show served in that particular division during World War II.
Andrew Scheer's loving this.
Done by the government. And that raises serious concerns. What kind of message does that send to our allies around the world? That when they come to the House of Commons to address the House and Senate, that basic rudimentary vetting as to who might be in the galleries isn't done? That's incredible, Mr. Speaker. So we'll take your statement under advisement. We'll have more to say on this, but there are still many, many questions that need to be answered as to how the Prime Minister's office so completely dropped the ball on this.
Wow.
We both share the frustration about what happened on Friday, but I do want to reiterate, and as you have made very clear in your statement, Mr. Speaker, that this was your initiative.
There it is.
Canada had
we had nothing to do with it.
Individual coming to the government had no knowledge. The Speaker is responsible for this chamber. He invited him of his own accord, and he made the decision himself to recognize him.
They're throwing Anthony Rota under the bus.
Nor the delegation of Ukraine had any knowledge of this. I would respectfully submit, Mr. Speaker, that you clarify this for the members opposite, because it's important that this information be clear and that these false allegations do not continue, because they're not true. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
I will not, on behalf of my constituents, take 1 ounce of blame for this government failing a vetting process. They can say, Mr. Speaker, it was your pure view. They invited this man. They invited this world global leader here, and they failed to vet this. So no, on behalf of the constituents of Calgary Nose Hill, I will not accept collective responsibility, and the buck stops at the Prime Minister's office.
Ooh.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Everyone's pissed about this. It's just a matter of who's taking the blame.
I just want to make it clear that it was my decision, and my decision alone. This was a constituent who wanted to see wanted to be here, and I recognized him. It was my decision, and I apologize profusely. I cannot tell you how regretful it is.
Talking softly isn't going to fix it.
And for that, I apologize. And I'll let the Honourable Opposition House Leader
take your robe off and walk out, buddy.
The Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to underscore the point that my colleague just raised. This is a question about, is it the government's position that when we have a foreign head of state, that the government does zero security vetting for who will be in the same room as that head of state? Is that the message that we're sending to our allies, that when they come here, you don't know who's going to be in the gallery? I mean, what kind of message does that send to Canada's partners and allies around the world? And that's the point that we're raising, Mr. Speaker. It's all well and good for you to come in and accept your share of the responsibility. But there's only one entity in this chamber that has the resources and the mandate to keep people safe.
PMO. Yeah.
As my colleague just pointed out, when President Zelensky comes here on the invitation of the Prime Minister, when the entire itinerary is planned by the PMO, the government of Canada has an obligation to him personally to secure his safety, has a responsibility to the people of Ukraine to ensure the safety of their president. And he has a responsibility to all Canadians to uphold the dignity of Canada as a country, as a trusted partner and ally. And in all three of those areas, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister failed. Yes. Failed to do that basic level of responsibility. That's the point that we're underscoring, Mr. Speaker. There was a Nazi in the chamber. There's only one entity, one group that could have done anything about it, that could have flagged that. And as I mentioned, the director of the Parliamentary Protective Service reports up to the Government of Canada for operational matters. That is in the mandate of the Protective Services. The director of the Parliamentary Protective Service must be a member of the RCMP. That's in the enabling legislation. That was all done for a reason, Mr. Speaker. Yes. I was in the chair when that legislation was passed, and it was precisely because the House of Commons itself did not have the capability to do full security vettings and background checks on individuals. That was the reason why we did that.
Yes. It's embarrassing.
Yes. To make available to the House of Commons the resources of federal institutions like the RCMP and like CSIS. That is why we do not accept the attempt to collectivize blame for this. Opposition parties do not have access to CSIS reports. We do not have access to the RCMP's vast capabilities to do background checks and vetting. And in this case, it would have taken a simple Google search to find a blog post written by that individual saying that he served in an SS division, in a Nazi division during World War II. And again, all those resources are available to the government. The mandate, the responsibility lies with the government, and the entire reporting structure of the Parliamentary Precinct Services here flows up to the government. That's why we still have many, many questions, and this issue does not end with your statement or your apology.
No, it does not. And where will it end? Will it end when there's a resignation? Will it end with a call to action? Of course, it's horrible now that this has happened and that House Speaker still remains the main House Speaker. Personally, I think he should be let go. I think he should be let go. And I think that politicians need to work a little bit harder for their job. You want to be a person, a public figure. You want to be in the spotlight. You want to have the federal stage. Well, then start acting like it and start doing your research and your due diligence. There's no immunity for politicians. There's no immunity for anybody. Anybody can be canceled. Welcome to cancel culture. Well, everybody needs to be held responsible for their actions, and this is one that can't be undone. It can't. We were hosting Ukraine's president. What's that? What does this message say about Canadians? It says we're incompetent, we're stupid, we invite Nazis, we want our guests to feel uncomfortable. India's already penetrated us. We've given all of our climate tax away to Zelensky himself. Like, here's money, bitch. Here's a Nazi too. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's so bizarre that this happened. But of course, I'd love to pass the question off to you. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about a Nazi being in there? How do you feel about the House Speaker's apology? Or do you think that he should be he should have to resign or be fired? Let us know what you guys think down below in the comments. That's where we're going to end it, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by checking out the merch shop linked right up there. Or if you want to do something for free, which is also absolutely acceptable and highly encouraged, you can subscribe right there. If you want to continue watching videos like this, you can do so by clicking or tapping right there to watch the next upcoming video. And if you want to watch a little bit of different content, but also Canadian stuff, you can do so by clicking right up there. That's my second channel, House of Canada, also known as the House of Commons Highlights. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.